work, I think, is really important. And as I was telling Matt, that it's bringing this art, taking Horace's work into the 21st century in a way that makes it very much his own and very important. This is Tom Pong.
Thanks, Yvonne. These are 3 photographs of my grandpa's work. This is my grandpa. He used to be a highway patrolman. This is his son, Jerry. And then these are Apache fire dancers in the background. And I did what you call well, it's like the 3 pictures were pressed together through the computer. And then I used other editors to make these circles, and I laid an eagle feather on there right here.
I couldn't see when you told me go away. I don't want you around after the day.
I would see him participate in the arts and crafts competition at the Anadarko Indian Exposition every year. They would have a competition, and he didn't even necessarily put his photographs in there. He had these cultural items that he would take every year, and they would win prizes. So we would kind of watch that process. And later on, I guess it was accumulation of just looking at his pictures over the years, which wasn't formal. It was just family get-togethers where people would come to visit, and they'd bring out his photographs, and we'd go over them, and they'd all visit and talk about them. So it was kind of indirectly.
Oh yeah, I don't think he said, I'm going to capture the Kiowas transitioning from the late 1800s to the 1950s and 60s. He was just taking photographs of what he felt was relevant, just like you would or I would,
And I'm not so sure, like today, I think of myself as an artist, and photographers see themselves as sort of artist photographers, and I think he just liked photography and liked taking photos. Sometimes when I see his work, and I'm talking about like curators and curating, is that there are times when I feel like curators have a job, and their job is to frame and present his show to the public, and they have their own ideas about what they want to say about it and stuff. I don't feel like sometimes he's portrayed in a way that I would see it, because I grew up, he's my grandpa, and he was a really kind person, friendly person, and kind of unassuming about his photography and stuff. And I don't want people to get this idea that he was like all about photography and stuff, because he had a whole life besides photography. It was something he did, that he did the best he could. He always did the best he could. And I would like to see more of my grandfather the way I saw him portrayed, rather than someone who didn't ever know him. I think it's one of the greatest arts, because you're using sound, light, just everything painters are doing, but it's just more mechanical process. And the images move, but like painters, what are they looking at? They're looking at reflection of light, and that's what the camera's doing for you. But then you add like if you're going to use music, and you get into lighting, you get into scripts, you get into, or it depends on what you do with it. Like I like those Warhol films, and they were really off the wall. But sometimes they're more interesting than films, although they try to do it now, but he was doing it when you had film. And I remember they asked him, like, why did you do this? And he says, they said, why did you leave the scratches and all the stuff in there? He said, so you're watching a film. So he's talking about the physical part of the film and everything. And so now they fake it. They put digital scratches and all that stuff. But back in those days, he was kind of on the ball, I guess. Or they'd be zooming in and out and doing really, it's like this is how this works, and we're going to show you as much about the process as we can. Even though you're watching something, you don't realize what we're doing, or maybe you realize it, but you don't think about it. Oh yeah, he's one of my favorites. Grandpa's cows was, I was pretty young, but I was in art school, and I had done some pieces where I used Polaroid photography. So I was at my grandpa's on their land west of Anadarko, and he had always kept about 10 or so cows all the time. He always had cows, and he had pigs and chickens and stuff, and they always had gardens. So it had snowed, and I was walking around with my Polaroid, and I came upon those cows, so I took a Polaroid picture of those cows, and then took it back in the studio and made this painting from the image of the Polaroid. One of my instructors, you know, he's like, man, this is, you know, he was talking good about my paintings, but he said, I don't know about this guy. And it was like one of the calves. He said, looks like he only has 3 legs, you know. So he was making fun of my painting, but it did look like it had 3 legs. And also, I had one of my first one-man shows was at Anadarko at the same museum where my grandfather had a show at Anadarko. And it was kind of cool because my grandpa looked at that painting and he recognized which cows were which ones in there, because it's not like a realistic painting at all. But he recognized by their, well, the mother cow, she kind of had a big head of the cows, and so it's recognizable. And when I look at that picture, I remember that cow because of what she looked like. And I saw her painting before I ever saw her. I was at the Fred Jones Museum of Art at University of Oklahoma, and they were having a student show, and there was this brown painting up there that had this sort of petroglyph images, and then it had some writing on there, which I recognized as Comanche. So I looked at the name tag, and it said Wendy Masetki, and I believe it said Comanche. Ultimately, that's how her and I got married. So she made this painting, I guess, commemorating all that or whatever. What it was I had won an award, like a $1,500 award at this biennial in Oklahoma City, and so I had cash in my pocket. And I asked her if she wanted to go to New Orleans, which she said yeah. So we went down there, and we just stayed there one night, and we had a great time. And then we were coming back, and as we were coming back, we stopped by, there's a rest stop kind of south of Ardmore, and at the rest stop, she asked me if I wanted to get married. So here we are in this rest stop, and of course I said yeah, and in my pickup traveling, and then we came to Norman, we gathered up our clothes, and we didn't even stay overnight. We started driving to Las Vegas. So she was like that. She was intelligent, but I would want to say intuitively intelligent as an artist. Of course, she was killed in a car wreck in 2006, and I believe we got together around 92 or 93, somewhere in there. And of course, we have Wendy's son, Tabe, my son, and that's a great thing. I'm just kind of wish that she had been able to spend more time with him. She only was able to spend 7 months with him before her car wreck. And I think he was probably the greatest thing that ever happened to her in her life. She was really happy about him. There's a song from around 1969 called Wendy, and her name was Wendy. But the lyrics of the song is, who's walking down the street of the city, smiling at everybody she sees. And Wendy has stormy eyes that flash at the sound of lies. And at the end of it, it says, Wendy has wings to fly above the clouds, you know. So to me, when I hear that song, it's singing about her, even though it's called Wendy. That's what she was like. It was kind of like she was powerful, but then she had the softest voice and would be quiet most of the time, especially around other people she didn't know. Just having a partner who was that into art, it kind of keeps your game up, I guess you'd say. And I don't think we were ever competitive, but there's this thing that you're with someone who's talented, and so you kind of have to, I guess, keep up with them. You don't have to be better, but it kind of inspires you. I guess you say it's inspiration. It just happens. I know there's an old movie about Vincent van Gogh, and there's parts in there where he's living with Gauguin. I think it's Kirk Douglas, and I know who the other actor is, Anthony Quinn, and it's kind of fun because they start getting into it and having big arguments and debates, but that energy, you know, it gives you energy to work, and you get excited, I guess. And so that kind of happened. I mean, yeah, I mean, you can't beat having a partner who's in the same field with you and kind of shares the same excitement, you know. I would like to make a film. I know there are artists who've made films. Julian Schnabel made films that I think are really good films. And I'm sure there's a lot of other artists. And then there's the whole art film sort of genre. But like I said earlier, filmmaking's probably, to me, the most exciting art there is, because we're modern people. And I like painting, but it's kind of like a Rubik's Cube. Like you play with it until you finish, and then, but if filmmaking just has more dimensions, I guess you'd say. Well, historically, we have in our tribes ancient kind of things that belong to our tribe tribally, and then we kind of have a modern history, I guess you'd say, where these my grandpa's photos would fall into that category, and modern things that we're doing today. So I think it's valuable, but in the end, things are only going to last as long as they last. And for some reason, the things that we have that are old, we've been able to keep those things intact, you know. And I'm talking about calendars and different religious types of things, you know. They have keepers who take care of those things, and they've kept them. So I'm not really worried about that, and those things are going to last as long as they are going to last, you know. And as far as like my grandpa's photos, we have the negatives, but even those are going to deteriorate over time, you know. So then we have to like get them digitized and store them digitally. Artwork, you know, that's the museums who have that are probably taking good care of those things, you know. So yeah, but who knows where we're going and how long we're going to last as a people and everything. So it's up to the kids. It's always been up to the kids. I mean, we're the ones taking care of stuff now, and as you and I get older, as our generations get older, it's going to be their job to take care of those things. And hopefully someone's always going to consider them valuable, and there will always be someone to look after those things. But that's all you can do, you know, is take care of it the best you can. And it's probably going to, I mean, look how long some of these paintings have been in museums, you know, for hundreds of years, you know. And then how long, you know, will it take before our bloodlines get thinned down, and how many generations? Things happen quickly, you know. But as long as there's somebody who cares about it, then I have hope that these things are going to go on, you know, continue on.